welcome to Up Close with Carlos Sang, celebrating art, entertainment, and the human spirit. Welcome to another episode of Up Close with Carlos Sang. Today I am joined by Olivier Award winner and Tony Award nominee. She is one of the most acclaimed actresses on the West End today, and I'm so excited to have Jenna Russell with us on the podcast.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Carlos, my pleasure.
So I first came to see you in the Bridges of Madison County. I was hoping we could start there. So it was my first time at the Menier Chocolate Factory, and I was totally entranced by your portrayal of Francesca. I wanted to ask, what was it like having, Jason Robert Brown in rehearsals with you whilst you were doing the London premiere of, what was already an established modern masterpiece?
Firstly, I'm thrilled that you came to see it, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece, isn't it? Just so beautiful. So that's such a delicate little thing. We had Jason around, but not for long. We had him at the end of the rehearsal period. But I had he kind of didn't come into rehearsals as a whole. But he and I had a couple of sessions together. I've worked with Jason a few times. He's always brilliant. He's a bit like Sondheim in the fact that you kind of feel a bit terrified of him because he knows what he wants. Do you know what I mean? He really is. He has, again, a bit like Victoria Wood too. He has the music in his head. He has how it should feel, and he's very particular about that. Quite rightly, it's come out of his head, out of his fingers. It's his baby. So, but every note that Jason gives is always, bang on. So I love working with writers. I feel very lucky to have had in my career the opportunity to work with composers, living composers. There's nothing quite like it. Also, I always want them, and sometimes I'm very lucky enough to get them so haphazardly to sing whatever it is they're telling me about. And I always think that composers sing their material better than anybody. So I did get a few of those moments with Jason over the years. But yeah, he's superb talent, and I was really thrilled to be able to do that show over here. It was a big old struggle for me because when I looked at what the show was, I thought, oh my goodness, it's like super romantic. It's all soprano-y sounds, which I'd never really properly kind of played with in my voice. And, she's so feminine. I mean, if you know me and you know what I've done in the past, I'm kind of the opposite of that. But it was gorgeous to do it. It really was. It was so, you live with these characters when you play them. And living with Francesca was really lovely because she was just so full of love and positivity and openness that, that kind of carried through into my everyday life. It was really nice.
Yeah, it's a show that's really full of passion, and it's so understated as well. Unless I'm mistaken as well, was that the first time you had worked with Trevor Nunn as well since Les Mis?
Yeah.
And
we'd never worked together.
Yeah, what was it like working with him after all of these years since doing Les Mis?
It was great, and we've ended up bizarrely being kind of really good chums. Trevor is, I've seen so many of his plays and musicals over the years. My other half, Ray, was in the National Ensemble season when Trevor was at the National last as artistic director, and he did 7 plays with Trevor. So I saw a lot of his plays, and what he has this brilliant ability to do is it's kind of like he can bring a filmic quality to the stage. He knows he's no one does transitions better than Trevor. He sees it, it's like a painting in his head. And also he just knows when something's right, when something's wrong. He really shines a spotlight on stuff. He used to say to me all the time, if I ever raised my voice as Francesca. He was like, no, because I thought she's passionate, she's Italian. And he said, no, everything's soft. Even when you're telling someone off or being confronting, soft. And he was so right. In retrospect, when we were starting to run it, I thought, I see what you mean. It flavors her whole body, that she's this, she does stand up for herself, she does make these decisions, but it's all very much out of love, and her love is a gentle, soft, supporting love. He was brilliant. He guided us brilliantly, and yeah, he's one of the theatre greats. So I was so pleased that we got an opportunity to work together, and hopefully we will again. I mean, my goodness, he's got the energy of a 16-year-old. He ran up and down the stairs every day at rehearsals, never took the lift. Hello, and he was there on time. His tech was like, he was on it, like more than most directors a quarter of his age. So yeah, I really enjoyed working with Trevor. We all did. He was brilliant.
Oh wow, yeah, that sounds like an amazing experience. Yeah, and you mentioned earlier as well, with Francesca, she's very much this soprano, and she's Italian. Was it, a challenge, approaching, such operatic material and, performing in this Italian accent throughout the show?
It was a major challenge. I really was terrified by it, Carlos. I put it off. David Babani, who runs the Chocolate Factory, got in touch with me about it about 2 years before, and I got all excited. And then I listened to the score and I looked at pictures of the production online to kind of get an idea of visually what it was. And I hadn't seen the film, and I just thought, oh no, this isn't me. Look, she's wearing all lovely lady dresses and she's all feminine, and I'm scared of that, plus the fact it's Italian and I'm a Cockney, plus the fact she's singing all soprano-y sounds, all soft, beautiful sounds, and I didn't know whether I had that in me. But when I couldn't keep away from the music, I said no, and we put it to bed. But then I kept playing the album, and I just thought, oh God, this is so beautiful. You've got to take a risk. And I remember just saying that to myself, take a risk, play with that part of your arsenal that you've never played with, and just see what happens. And before I started, I did have a good long chat with Jason about it, because he just said, I know your voice, but I don't know what your soprano bits are like. And I said, well, I don't either. And he said, well, do me a favor. He said, will you go to a singing teacher, which I don't normally do. He said, will you go to a singing teacher and just play around with those sounds and just see what you've got up there and how to use it, which I did. I went to an opera coach for about 2 months before rehearsals and kind of got used to that sound coming out of my mouth. I did shove in a few belty bits, but I saved those for very specific moments. But I did just try and just stay in that lovely soft place in the voice, and it was beautiful to sing in that area because I'd never done it before. Again, no stress. I was just like kind of walking around in a cloud for the time I did that show. My voice was always in good nick. It was lovely. It was really lovely.
Yeah, you've also developed a reputation for being, a champion for smaller and regional venues as well, like the Menier and Donmar Warehouse, and of course you recently did Piaf at Nottingham and Leeds. Was it always a conscious choice to prefer to do shows at those venues as opposed to doing more commercial theatre?
Do you know what? I guess it was. When I started acting, I was like 14, and I started doing telly. That's how I started. And you do a telly, it's 3 months, maximum 6 months on a series, but or a couple of days on something, or 3 weeks on a film. It's short. And maybe that's why, but in my head, I was like, I love this because it's changing all the time. You're not stuck in one place. you go into that job and you're this person, then you put that to bed, and then you go into this next job and you're somebody else. And I enjoyed that. And I guess I've tried to look for that in theatre, because I know I wouldn't be happy doing something for a year. I just know I wouldn't. I think the longest theatre I've ever done, I think I did I do 9 months? Yeah, I did. In the end, I did 9 months in Guys and Dolls, but it was initially a 6-month contract on the stage, and that made sense to me. And at the end of the 6 months, they asked if I wanted to stay on for another 3 months, and I said, "Yeah, I'll do that." But even that was a bit of a for me, playing the same person. So I guess if you do the smaller theatres, and the shorter runs, I don't know, I just always feel like with Merrily We Roll Along, for example, we did 3 months at the chocolate factory, then we had this little break, and then we transferred it into the West End. But we knew it was always only ever going to be, I think it was 11 weeks we did, which then makes it really special to me. And it was a change of venue, we had a little break, but I loved that. I loved taking it from this lovely, brilliant, tiny little theatre into a bigger space, but still, it was short. It was, I guess, it's more like doing a play. And the pieces, therefore, are just because they're not highly commercial. They're usually just a little bit more in the ballpark of what I enjoy, a bit more kind of they're kind of indie musicals, I guess. They're more, they tackle, for me, more interesting subjects. They were never intended, I don't think, to run for years and years and years. They, like Sondheim stuff, is so suited to a run of a play, a 3-month run. You get your audience, you get your people that love it, you get some other people in, but then you're not stuck in this world of trying to fill a 1,800 seat theatre every night for 2 years. It's a very specific type of show that gets that type of an audience.
Yeah, it's definitely very momentary, and I suppose you're in that role for the whole of that show's run as well. So there's not someone taking over, and you're not taking over somebody else as well.
Yeah, there's something lovely about giving birth to it and sort of saying goodbye to it. there's love. You get a lovely completion with it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember when I first came to the Menier as well. I was really surprised by how small it was, and the proximity between the performers and the audience. Is that ever quite daunting, having such intimacy, during your performance?
I guess that's another reason that I like doing these shows, because I do love the proximity of the audience and the actors. I love it. I always feel a bit odd when they're far away. I don't like it. I like to see people. I like to see their faces. I like to, because you can really feel it. You can feel when an audience is smiling or when they're just agreeing with you. It doesn't have to be those big laughs, although when you get those big laughs in a small space as well, it's exhilarating. But you can the contract between an audience and an actor is a very special thing, and it only happens in that moment, in that evening of the show. You start a performance and you feel what the audience, where they are, how they are, and you adapt your performance to suit your audience. I mean, that really does happen in the moment. And I guess when you're doing it in a smaller venue, like the Donmar, like the Young Vic, like the Chocolate Factory, like I guess you would in Charing Cross Theatre, the Leeds where we just were, that's a really intimate house. I mean, there are so many of them. Southwark Playhouse, you really get an opportunity to have that connection with an audience that you don't quite have in a big house. And I love that.
Absolutely. One recent highlight for me as well, though, was getting to see the live stream of Piaf, and also getting to see the Kings of Broadway concert on YouTube as well. Do you think this is the future of theatre? Having it at home live stream digitalized?
I hope not. I really hope not. I feel quite strongly about it. I understand why they've done it. I really do. But it's an odd one. I think probably for the next couple of years, all being well, that the recovery for us all as a country, as a world, comes back. I think probably what they'll do, I would imagine, is that they will do one evening, a live stream for people that are nervous, and understandably nervous, for people who are vulnerable to everything that's going on, so they can see it. But I think if it's turned into something that is then on demand for 4 months, I don't think that's right, because also, you film these things, but it's not the same, and something tricky like Piaf, because we did the whole show socially distanced. There were 2 people I could be close to. So then when someone's filming it, it always has to be in a big wide shot, because the actors aren't close together. Do you know what I mean? And something like NT Live or digital theatre, which I've done some stuff with digital theatre before. They come in, they watch the show, they film it. NT Live is one evening they film it on. I think digital theatre, they film it on 2 evenings. They have 5 cameras. The director gets to edit it together. It's a very different thing than what's kind of going on generally, which is usually one camera at the back and another camera trying to grab close-ups. And I just don't think it serves the work well. But that's my opinion. I think a lot of people see it as a good opportunity to reach out to other audience members, which I think is true, and I agree with that. But it's not what theatre is. And also, again, I'm one of those people that does these shows that last 3 months. I do that on purpose because I think it's magic. I think theatre is magic. And if you miss the production, then you miss the production, and then it's gone. It's here, it's gone. And then we can have revivals of things, that it doesn't become, oh, that's the show, and then everyone has to replicate. It's a tricky thing. But for my taste, and I think for a lot of actors, we feel the same way. We want people to come back to the theatre, because that relationship, that's why we do theatre. It's not telly. We've chosen to be in a theatre production, not a film or a TV show. So I get it. I understand it for the meantime, but I hope that it gets phased out. I hope it does. But I do think probably a good idea is to do the one live stream, so that people who can't get there, it's impossible for them to get there, can see it. But they've also got to know that it's probably filmed right at the back of the theatre with one camera. It's not NT Live, which is a whole different thing, but that costs hundreds of thousands of pounds to film. Theatres can't afford to do that, regular theatres.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think one of my worries is that, it will, breathe, I won't need to go to the theatre, I can watch.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's one of
I think people aren't seeing the bigger picture of that. I think theatre producers, they must be weighing up the pros and cons of it. But I think the more we make it available to everybody all the time, it's going to stop people coming to the theatre. And in the end, we will not have people coming to the theatre, or very few people, because they go, oh, I can't be bothered to go into the West End to see that show. I'll watch it when they put the live stream out. I think it's a false economy. Absolutely. That might be being controversial there.
I nearly did come up to Nottingham, but obviously it did become socially distanced, because obviously it was sold unsocially distanced, and then I was like, okay, I won't book. I have to watch the live stream now, because I thought, I got to see that physical transformation that you all did. How did you go about, finding and developing your own portrayal of Piaf, who is, such an icon in 20th century culture?
Oh, well, I'm always, especially when you're doing people that actually lived, it's tricky, isn't it? You can't get away from who they are. But also it's a play. So you go, all right, I'll just take what I can from the play. And basically that's what I did. I mean, the French was really difficult for me because I didn't speak a word of it. And I thought, oh, that'll be fine. But actually really hard singing in the French. I found that really tricky. But once I'd got a hold of it, which took me a long time, I thought it was fabulous. I felt very sophisticated singing in French. But she's what a character. It's hard, isn't it? Because you start her 14 and then up to her death, and she really did have this massive transformation physically, that when at the end of her life, she was, although I think she was 47, but she didn't look 47. She looked like she was in her 80s. I mean, she really was affected badly from bad health and bad, ravaged from drink and all the rest of it. So again, it's brilliant. You get an opportunity to play someone from the beginning to the end. And I'm always a big fan of getting that opportunity. They don't come along much. Yeah. But I loved it. Yes. And to be with Sally Ann, Sally's been a mate of mine forever. And I hadn't ever worked with Laura Pitt-Pulford, but she's heaven. And the rest of the cast was brilliant. We had a really good time. And it was a lovely show to come back to, to come back to work.
Yeah. The show, it obviously ran as well in July and August time. I want to know as well, how challenging was it to also connect with the audiences who, were socially distanced, were wearing face masks, and how much did, restrictions impact on your rehearsal period as well?
It was tricky. It was tricky. We did our best. We tested every day. We were socially distanced in rehearsals. I mean, it was hard. One of our actors had lost his mum earlier in the year, and there were times when he would be upset and you couldn't give him a hug. It was horrible. And I get quite emotional about it. It was horrid, and not what I sign up for as an actor. We're a supportive breed, and it felt very strange not to be able to go and have a meal together. We're all away from home. We couldn't do that. It wasn't like work normally is. And then on stage it's tricky, and backstage it was tricky. But we got through it, and we were highly stringent about it. And even when the lockdown measures were reduced, the theatres still wanted to continue with the socially distanced approach that we had with the audience and for ourselves. And I guess nobody got COVID, so it worked, but it was difficult. On our first show, we walked out and there's a person here, then there's 2 empty rows, then there's another person, then there are 2 people over there. It felt very, oh my gosh, where are you all? This is, and trying to bring them in. And I think we did a good job. I think we did a good job, but it kind of broke my heart a little bit as well. All of our hearts. We were all like, oh my word, is this what it's going to be like? I don't think it is. And our director went to see something in London just before we started teching. And he said, it's very interesting. He said, the socially distanced measures that are on in London, he said, are nothing like they are here. He said, there's a space between a chair. There's a chair between, there's 2 people, then there's a chair, then there's another 3 people, then there's a chair. He said, it's very different. And, last night I saw somebody sent me a clip of Wicked opening on Broadway, that beginning-y bit, and there's everyone with no masks, and there's a full audience, and the cast are all doing their thing, where they're all close together. And I'm not ashamed to admit it, I had a little cry, because I thought, oh, there it is, there's our world, there it is. So I'm hoping next time I manage to do, if I'm lucky enough to get back on a stage, we can all, audience and cast alike, be together because that Piaf was wonderful. It was wonderful to do it, but it wasn't our job as we know it. The production wasn't the production as we would have done had we not been able to be near each other. You know, Piaf was a very physical person. She slept with everyone. She fought everybody. And we had to do all of that, get that across, or try to get that across without going near anyone. It was very strange. I think we did all right, but it you know, the feeling of the piece, I think, an intrinsic part of her, we couldn't portray.
It's so interesting. Yeah, definitely. Like, you know, since going back to seeing shows again, you know, I've tried to see something, you know, every month since May, and it has been interesting seeing that transition process, seeing, like, you know, theaters, you know, reducing their social distancing measures. And yeah, I want to move on as well. I want to ask you as well, you know, so over your career, you know, you've worked with some of the best directors like Trevor Nunn and James Penford, but also, you know, people like Marianne Elliott and, you know, Jamie Lloyd and Robert Icke. What do you think it is that makes someone a great director?
Oh, what do I think? I mean, they've got to be a great communicator, obviously. The best directors that I've worked with, or the ones that I found most enjoyable, they're almost like teachers. They've got a way of working. You know, everyone's very different, and everyone has very different levels of what they expect in a rehearsal room or how they run a rehearsal room. And I guess, you know, I've watched some directors and go, oh, grab hold of it a bit more, or other ones I just sit back and go, oh God, you're brilliant. I mean, I've worked with some of the best directors in the world. I'm so lucky. And you know, most of them I would walk over hot coals to work with again. And it's completely obvious why they're the brilliant directors that they are. You know, they can communicate, they take their time casting. I think that's a really important thing. They find the right people for the parts. They don't go, oh, I've got 2 weeks to do it, I'll sort it out. You know, sometimes I think Maria Friedman took 6 months to cast Merrily, I think, ultimately. Everybody they had to be absolutely what she had envisaged in her head. And I think it shows when you see a production where someone's gone, no, I know that person's, you know, just won, I don't know, a blimmin' Emmy, but they're not right. They really have a very specific idea of what they want. Most of them are just brilliant, and they, you know, they can have a laugh, but they get down to business. There's one director I remember working with, and he would say, you must never be late. If your call is at 10 o'clock and you want to have a chat, come in at 10 to 10, have your chat. When you come into the rehearsal room, it's work. There's no talking in the rehearsal room unless you're in the scene or you've got something to add to the rehearsal. I don't want to see any phones, newspapers. And, you know, we all went a bit, oh, but he was right. He was absolutely right. And, you know, I've said a couple of times to younger directors, this director, which I won't name, he does this. You can do that if you're finding it tricky to control the room because there's so much noise going on, or people are always on their phones, or it's totally within your rights as a director to say, while you're in this space, it's just about the work. So when you're not being used, just leave the room. Or if you want to have a chat with someone, just leave the room. It just, you know, you can waste so much time with like a morning session being 20 minutes at least, 30 minutes of everyone saying hello to each other and go, oh, I need a wee. Oh, yes, so do I. And then it's 10:30 and then you've got a warm up, then it's 11 o'clock. You've lost an hour almost. Whereas you get in 10 minutes early, say everything, sort yourself out, back, bam, into rehearsals. And it feels like now we're here to work, because it is work, you know. I have to explain that to people, friends of mine who aren't actors. It is work. It's hard work, but it is work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting, like seeing how all of these different directors will have their own interpretations of, classic shows and have their own styles to add as well. I was curious to know as well, having had such a long career on stage, how has that informed the way that you go and see shows yourself? Do you have a more critical eye, for instance?
No, I'm like a kid in a toy shop. I love going to the theatre. Getting emotional. I love I love the expectation of it, but often I love it. Just I really find it hard to find fault because I know how much has gone into it. I know how hard everyone has worked to get onto the stage. Even if they're the third person in the back row from the left, that person has trained for years to get to that place. I see it. I see the dedication. I see the sacrifice, and that always moves me. And also, if a show isn't perfect, I'm the person in the audience who go, yeah, but wasn't the lighting good? I'll always find something. And I've been to see shows. I remember I saw a show at the Almeida, and it was everyone was so excited about seeing it. You had to kill people to get a ticket. And I went, and I really, really didn't like it. But there was one dancer that was so good and so had the show. She had the style of the show that everyone else was struggling to do, but she just had it, and it was worth the ticket price to watch that dancer be perfection, because she was perfection. So I always go, I'll find something, even if I don't like the show, if I think things are dodgy. I honestly can't say there's anything that I've ever sat there and gone, oh God, no, because we're all we're doing is trying to tell a story, and I can only applaud people for doing that. And some things might be wrong, some things I might have wanted to be better, but there's always something. There's always the sound design might be out of this world. I've seen shows that were terrible, but the sound design was out of this, just extraordinary. The voices and everything. You go, well, there we are. That was worth my ticket price. I'm full of admiration for anyone that tries to put anything on. It's hard. It's really hard. I remember my mum put not much. Her boyfriend had written a show, and it'd been done. It was years ago, years and years and years ago, and it was done in a fringe theatre. Then they got to put it on at the Arts, and this guy, he had producers, and they put money into it, obviously, and he put some money into it, and my mum put like 600 quid into it. So she felt like, I'm helping this show have a life. And it opened, the same show with the same brilliant cast, but of course a different set of critics came in, and they slated it. And it was the same show, and it did a tiny weeny little run. But my mum was like, what's just happened? She was really upset, crying. And I said, this is what everyone feels when they put on a show. You do all this hard work. You're all doing it for the right reasons, for the best intentions. And it can get its head cut off the minute it pops its head up out of the floor. That's a risk you take. But at the end of the day, all these people have believed in this baby. They want this baby to live. They want it to, be able to start crawling. And sometimes that just doesn't happen. And it is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. Yeah. So I always have nothing but admiration for anyone who puts on any piece of art, because you're risking a lot.
Yeah, completely agree. You also have your solo concert coming up at Cadogan Hall.
Oh yeah.
Tell me, why did you feel like this would be the moment to, do a solo show again, and what can audiences come to expect from the show?
Well, I've never done them, Carlos, because I've always been terrified of them. Another thing, here we go. Always do the things you're most terrified of. Do it. The producer, Darren Bell, who's a brilliant, brilliant man, asked me to do one last year at the Hippodrome, which I did, and we managed. I think he had something like 20 artists doing things, and only 10 of us managed to get on. It was really not good for the people, the actors, the artists, and for the producers and the venue. Everything got closed down again, but we managed to sneak in this little show, and I was terrified, but actually I loved it because it gave me an opportunity to kind of have a chat, have a different kind of connection with an audience, tell them stories about the shows I've been in, sing songs from shows that I was in. This one, because we did it and it all went lovely. And then he said, let's do it again next year, but we'll do it bigger. So this time, I'm very nervous. We're doing it at the Cadogan Hall, which obviously I've sang at before, but in a concert environment. And I always find those things terrifying because you can't talk. You walk on, sing a Gershwin song, and then walk off in a frock. It goes against everything that makes me happy. But I've done them, not brilliantly, I hasten to add. But what you can do with a solo show is it's a much more personable thing. So you can talk, you can tell stories, you can take the audience on a journey, I guess, much like doing a play or a show. And we're going to have a 7-piece band, which is brilliant. Nigel Lilly, who is MDing it, who literally has just flown out to do Caroline or Change on Broadway, and is zipping back to do a rehearsal with me, then going back for the opening night. And when we do the show together, I think he will have been home a week or something. So Nigel's doing it. Nigel did Fun Home with me, and Victoria Wood. He's a great friend of the late Victoria Wood, and they work together a lot. He used to help her with her music. He's done, what else has Nigel done? My goodness, Caroline will Change. He was meant to be doing Sunday in the Park with George with Jake Gyllenhaal, but fingers crossed that comes back for him. He's brilliant. And he and I have been working together on this stuff. So I've got some songs from shows that I've been in, which, there's some beauties there. Also some other songs that I've kind of always wanted to sing, maybe, from different genres, maybe. And I'm looking for a lot of humour, because if I just did all the songs from the shows, we'd all just be depressed, because obviously they're brilliant parts, but their big numbers are usually big depressing songs. So I've been searching for some funny moments, and there's plenty of those as well. So it should be a really lovely experience, and I'm so looking forward to it. I'm so terrified, but really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it sounds like it sounds really exciting. Do you, being an actor, do you find it, harder being yourself on stage than being a character?
Well, I'm happy being myself. What I think the thing that I struggle with, and I've noted over the years, is literally being a voice. So if you do an evening with Alan J. Lerner concert, they ring you up and they say, will you come and do some songs? You're like, yeah, that'd be great. And I always forget that then what they say is, wear a evening gown, which is just not me. And what you do is you literally walk on from stage left, the orchestra starts playing, you sing your song, and then you walk off. When we did the Kings of Broadway thing, I thought, this is exactly why I hate these things. Because I did my song, which means a lot to me, that song. And the audience all went, hey, it was lovely, beautiful audience, lovely applause. And I went to say thank you. All I wanted to say was thank you, but my mic was turned off. Oh. And I walked off, and I thought, that's why, because you can't connect. So what I find interesting for doing the solo show, which this is the first time I've done a proper one. I did that little cabaret, but this is proper, 2-act show, is that I can be myself, and I'm happy to be myself. I guess I always thought singing the songs without a character was the problem, but it's not. It's not being able to make a connection that is the problem, which for me, which is what happens when you do a concert. You literally walk on, sing perfectly, and walk off. You can't go, oh, guys, thanks so much for coming, or tell a story or have a joke with them. There's no time. You're all on, off. You're just a voice. You're an instrument in a pretty dress. And that is just not me. So I'm looking forward to the Cadogan Hall thing because I can be me. I mean, fully me, I guess. I do have a penchant for swearing, so I'm going to have to curb that a bit. But it should be, well, it will be. I know it will be because we're putting a lot of work into it. It'll be a warm hug and a laugh, certainly.
Yeah, it sounds like it'll be a really special evening. Just as a last question, what do you most want to be remembered for?
What do I most want? That's such a good question. Oh, my word. I guess my true love, my one absolutely hand on my heart, true love, and I've told him this, which took me a lot to tell him this, but somebody played me Sondheim when I was 14. I absolutely fell in love with it. It opened a door that I didn't even know existed. And I can absolutely say, and it's not like, yeah, I love doing Sondheim, but I love doing Sondheim because it feels like his work is part of me. It's part of my DNA when I was growing up, of how I expressed myself or what I connected to. And so the fact, and I always pinch myself, I mean, like properly pinch myself, and to the people that I can say, I can't believe how lucky I am that I have the opportunity to do this work that means so much to me. So if I, apart from being a good mum and, you know, a good friend and a good partner, career-wise, I'd love to be known as a theatre actor that did Sondheim quite well.
Jenna Russell, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, my pleasure, mate. My absolute pleasure.